have a special Tech Tuesday today. I know you guys have all you're here because you got the invite. But we wanted to let you know too, it's more than QuickBooks Online. We're also going to be introducing you to the RingOS Marketplace. So while QuickBooks Online is the first app in it, we didn't want you to, miss this actual, behind the scenes star of the show. So I have myself here. I'm Jamie, if you don't know me, the Partner Solutions Manager at RingLogix. And I have two great men on this call with me, Wayne Lant, our VP of Partner Operations, and Albert Diaz. He's our CEO and founder here. And I also have Miss Gabriella, which you guys probably know. She's from marketing, so she stays behind the scenes and helps me out. So today we're going to kick off our Tech Tuesday with introducing RingOS Marketplace and the first highly anticipated app, QuickBooks Online Invoice Syncing. So we're going to get ready. Anybody want to say anything before I go in here?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Here we go. All right, so today's agenda. We're going to let you meet the RingOS Marketplace. Like I said, it's the silent star of the show. But I know you guys are all here for the first app that we're going to be introducing, QuickBooks Online, of course, syncing. We're going to talk a little bit about RingOS billing versus QuickBooks Online accounting, right? So we're going to kind of give you a little visual of the differences of the two. And then Albert's going to take you in. We're going to give you a look-see, of course. That's how we always roll on our webinars and Tech Tuesdays. We hate presentations. They just keep us from talking about random things. So Albert's going to take you in and give you a little preview of it. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what's to come. Maybe our leadership on this call, they're going to give you a little insight. I won't steal the show. I know some things, but I don't know what we want to talk about just yet. So I don't want to get you guys too excited. So first, though, I keep talking about RingOS Marketplace, and Albert is going to show you. But to me, I didn't want this whole Tech Tuesday to be about QuickBooks. While it's an awesome app and it's going to be a great addition for you as partners for reconciliation, and it's going to be a time-saving tool, I didn't want you to miss out on the fact that we now have RingOS Marketplace. And I did want Albert to talk a little bit about the work that went into building this infrastructure into the platform. So I didn't want you to miss out on what I think is, I don't want it to be like the, always the bridesmaid, never a bride's scenario here. So Albert, I know that you're very passionate about Marketplace, so I'm going to hand it over to you for a moment.
Thanks, Jamie. Appreciate it. And partner community, thanks for being here with us. If you haven't met me before, my name's Albert. I'm the CEO and founder, and very fortunate to be, the manager for this team right here. So like Jamie alluded to, right, the silent star of the show is the Marketplace. And the Marketplace is something we've been working on for about a year now. It was an expansion of our secret sauce, which is called the ESPF, the External System Provisioning Framework. It would allow us to build RingOS in the way that it's able to manage the services like no other platform in the industry, right? So the little things that sometimes we can take for granted, like our single seat solution, where in one portal, you create a quote, you activate a service, you build a service, you manage a service, you provision the service. Our billing system automatically, if the services are due to be suspended, will automatically suspend them. If your customer pays an invoice in the middle of the night at 8 o'clock at night, it automatically reinstates it. And it basically takes out all the swivel chair operations of procuring services on some vendor platform, provisioning those services in a billing system, and then everything else afterwards, right? So what we did was we expanded on the ESPF to make it more universal, so we can create more modules to be able to sync data between RingOS and independent systems. And then we've built this Marketplace framework that we're extremely excited to introduce, right? And the Marketplace framework, we're going to talk about it a little bit later. What's our focus and what really do we want to build here? Now, if you go to the next slide. So the focus behind the Marketplace, right? It's really, we're trying to expand your future. We're trying to make you as efficient as we can in the space. So the first step is for an ecosystem expansion, right? So we built RingOS, and within RingOS, we offer our Portal 1-based trunking solutions and our NetSapiens-based PBX solutions. But really, what we've identified is that RingOS is a very powerful platform, right? Partners have the need to have, prescribed subscriptions that are, have the correct tax mapping and that are associated to the correct services. They want to be able to quote those services. They want to be able to provision those services without having to log into multiple systems. And we've been doing that, relatively well for the services that we offer. But the reality is there are other services in your ecosystem and other platforms in your ecosystem that you would benefit from provisioning or syncing to. So our goal is to continue expanding the ecosystem and adding more apps to the marketplace so that you can bring more of your stack into a unified solution, right? The goal there would obviously be efficiency. We want you to have more time. We want you to have more accuracy. That at the end of the day just gives a better quality of life for everybody on the team, right? From your tier one support members to your stakeholders. We're trying to unify the partner and customer experiences, right? There is no lack or shortage of solutions out there, but a common theme that you often go through as an MSP is that all of your solutions have a different portal, right? And if you've ever sold another white label solution, it usually had a different portal too. So you had a platform where you did some things, you had a billing system where you did some things, and your customer had to log into them independently. The same was true for fax and for anything else that you offer. So for us, we're trying to unify that experience for both you and the customer and bring in everything that we've been able to really capitalize on, right? The automated information collection and syncing, automated third-party provisioning, and automated third-party rating and billing, right? Because the goal would be to not just let you bill for those services like you can today with the third-party billing module, but to actually be able to rate those services. So if you were selling a backup solution or a ticketing solution or whatever it was, to establish a pool of free units and be able to rate those units, give them away for free as part of a package, and then bill for any overage like you would for any service at all. So with RingOS, right, we originally came with the quote to cash concept, which is something, it's marketing jargon. You guys have heard that in a few places before. And our idea was we need to take this from quote to closing the books, right? So the idea is in a single place, you're going to be able to build out your services, quote those services, activate them in real time, invoice them, support them, collect on them, and then sync them to your bookkeeping software and reconcile them against your accounting practices. So the idea here is, with RingOS by RingLogix and with QuickBooks, you now have an extremely powerful combination to be able to run your business. So you guys know what RingOS does for you. You can create and manage your products and services. You can quote your customers online. You're activating services on demand. You're generating and sending those invoices automatically to your customer. You're integrating with credit card gateways to be able to receive credit card payments. You're accepting any kind of payment the customer can get you. You're managing your receivables, your collections, and then you're reporting on things like those receivables, taxation, and other items that you have to report on. Now, when you bring the combination of QuickBooks, right, what's QuickBooks for? You're managing your general ledger, you're categorizing your transactions via the chart of accounts to understand where the money is coming from or going to. You're recording invoices and credits against those customers, payments and refunds against those customers. And really, it's the foundation for your financial reporting, right? So think your P&Ls, your balance sheets, your cash balance, your liabilities, everything there should be inside your bookkeeping software. And at the end of the day, that's where you're doing your banking and reconciliation. So the idea here is, when you're operating a business and you may be at a different maturity level, and some of the stuff we're going to talk about, we're going to try to talk about from the most basic of books to the most advanced. But essentially, right, when you're running a business, you're going to have a billing system. And that billing system is going to charge subscriptions, generate invoices, right, and send those invoices to your customer. And then typically, you're going to collect your payments in that billing system like you do with RingOS, right? So the customer will make you a payment in the billing system. And now you have your charges and your payments. But what happens next, a lot of times you're kind of left to yourself to take care of, right? So the part that happens next is reconciling your books. Now, depending where you are, right, you may just want to reconcile money in, money out, or you may want to reconcile money against your customers if you actually have your customers inside of QuickBooks. So the idea would be you bill for a service in a billing platform, you receive a payment in a billing platform, and then 2 days later, 5 days later, a bank deposit shows up in your bank account, okay? And you got to reconcile that bank deposit somewhere, right? So typically you're banking that cash in or you're booking that cash in against the undeposited funds, right? Payments that you receive from your customers. And then you're also reconciling that against those invoices. Well, if you don't have that integration, then that process is completely manual. And some of our partners have been doing that today. You'll export or you'll copy the invoices out of QuickBooks, RingOS. You'll put the invoices into QuickBooks so that now you have charges against the customer. and then you're reconciling payments against that invoice, and you're reconciling the deposit against that payment. And again, depending where you are in your bookkeeping maturity, right, it could be as simple as just keeping track of money in, to as sophisticated as keeping track of money in and aging and accounts receivable at the customer level, and then being able to report financially against your products and services to understand where's your revenue coming from, right? Do you have the most basics of setups and you're just booking all the revenue as income? Or do you have the most advanced of setups where you're booking IT revenue, VoIP revenue, labor revenue, hardware revenue, everything into its own chart of accounts, so that when you look at your P&Ls, you can see exactly where your money's coming from, what kind of margins you have, what kind of growth you have. Essentially, this is a tool to help you understand what should you be focusing on and what's your revenue driver for your organization.
All right, Albert, enough with the talk. Let's show them what's up.
Yeah, I know talking, and I know I'm a big talker. So guys, without no further ado, we're going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to get into the integration for you.
There you go. It's all you.
Let me know when you guys see that.
We can see your screen.
All right, guys. So with that, I introduced to you the new marketplace. So we're super excited about this. Like I said, this is our new framework that leverages our ESPF, the External System Provisioning Framework, which is part of our secret sauce. And it's where we introduced the first app that we're talking about today, which is QuickBooks Online. Now, the QuickBooks Online app, it's really important to understand what it is and what it's not, okay? So the purpose of this is to satisfy the conversation that we just had, okay? Which is syncing your accounting data from the billing system into your accounting system, okay? So that when you're reconciling your deposits, you have invoices and charges to reconcile against. Because if not, as an example, let's say you were booking your deposits, your payments against your customers, but those customers did not have invoices in QuickBooks, then what would happen is they would start racking up a credit balance. And if you looked at your QuickBooks, the numbers on your balances for your customers wouldn't make any sense, right? So by bringing that accounting data into QuickBooks, you now have the data that you need there so you can reconcile against it. Now, it's not a two-way sync, right? So we're not bringing data from QuickBooks over. And it's not a external billing pushing type mechanism either, which we've already started having some conversations. We have some partners that are receiving payments out of QuickBooks, and it looks like a version of what we've built could be used for that. And we'll probably have another webinar on that a different day. So today we're focusing on what this application does, which is sync your invoicing data, your charges and credits that make up an invoice, into QuickBooks. So with that, guys, I come into the app itself, and you'll notice that on the top right-hand side, I have a Connect to QuickBooks button, okay? And then here, I have the different tabs, which are going to handle the settings. So connecting this is super simple. You're going to hit the Connect to QuickBooks button, and you're going to get a typical SSO type experience, right? So in this example, I'm connecting to our staging environment, our sandbox. I have a couple sandboxes. So in production, you won't see this, but I'll go ahead and I'll pick the sandbox. I'm going to have a typical SSO where it's going to ask me for permissions. Now, I am already signed into QuickBooks. That's why you're not seeing the login page. I hit connect. And now the app is connected. Okay. So what we've done there is that we've established a secure connection from the RingOS server set to a private app that was approved, a secure private app that was approved and submitted to QuickBooks, right? So with QuickBooks, just so you guys know, you can't just develop against their and talk to their API. You actually have to develop an app using their SDK that gets put into the QuickBooks Marketplace, and then ours establishes a connection to that. That app gets approved by them, and it is extremely secure. Now, what it does is that it allows us to read information from your QuickBooks account, like your chart of accounts and your products and services and your customers, and it allows us to push information like creating invoices with the charges inside of them. Now, as far as how you use this, right, there's a couple things you got to do to QuickBooks to be ready. And to be clear, guys, we are not accountants. We're not bookkeepers. We're not QuickBooks authorized agents, right? We're not here to necessarily be able to support you. You do have to have an understanding of QuickBooks and how it works. You need to understand things like, your chart of accounts, QuickBooks products and services, invoices, receivables, P&Ls. If everything I'm saying to you right now is foreign or alien, then you have a little bit of learning on QuickBooks to do before you get into this. But this kind of stuff, I mean, if you work with QuickBooks at all, it should be very familiar. And I guarantee that if you have a bookkeeper, they're very familiar with it. Now, generally speaking, we do have a knowledge-based article that tells you what you need to do, and there really isn't a lot, right? So at the end of the day, the way QuickBooks works is that you have a chart of accounts, which is essentially categories where your expenses and your income go into, okay? And then in order to create an invoice in QuickBooks, because QuickBooks is not really a billing system, it has billing features, but QuickBooks doesn't have the concept of a billing period. You cannot just add charges to include on the next invoice cycle. It doesn't work that way, right? QuickBooks is a little bit rigid in that if you want to charge an item, you have to generate an invoice for it. There's just no way around it. And when you generate an invoice for that item, okay, you have to choose a QuickBooks product or service. Again, no way around it. These are things that you need, right? So if you generated invoices, you're familiar with that. So with that said, you're going to want to create products and services for either the bare minimum, which is a matching product or service per category, or if you're a bit more advanced, we'll get into it, for individual items like individual subscriptions or even individual tax jurisdictions, okay? But we do explain what it is you need and how to set it up. And the gist of it is you need to create your matching products and services. And then, of course, you need to make sure you have a customer there, okay? Now, how do you do this? It's really super simple. I'm inside the QuickBooks Sandbox environment. If you come over to Sales, Products and Services, okay, you'll see the products and services that I created here. Now, for the most part, I created one for each category that we have, and I'm going to show you that on the other side. Creating these, again, they're super simple. All you got to do is click New, you hit Service, you type in the name, you pick your income accounts, and you hit Save and Close. Now, remember, the chart of accounts is what affects your P&L. The products and services are just a necessary evil to generate an invoice. They're essentially a middle layer. So it can be one-to-one, right? Or one-to-many, it doesn't matter. But by using the products and services, you do have product and service type reports that you can use after the fact. So once you've created these, QuickBooks is ready to go, right? And if you're not doing anything special, you can use the products and services you already have. Now, once you've done that, you're going to come back over to the application. And once you've connected, the first thing you're going to do is handle all of your initial customer mappings, okay? This is where you're mapping a RingOS customer to a QuickBooks customer, okay? So on the left-hand side, we show you the list of RingOS customers. On the right-hand side, you have a list of drop-down menus. Now, of course, guys, I'm in a staging system. I tried to clean it up a little bit for you, but I got some bogus names. If you can just use your imagination, see around that. But essentially, if this customer here was unmapped, I'd hit the drop-down menu, find the matching customer in QuickBooks, and then automatically it will sync in real time and it will let you know the status in real time, okay? So anything that you see with a check is synced, anything you see with the orange triangle is not. Now, just a quick note here, you typically don't want to sync bad data into your QuickBooks, so my recommendation would be if you have a house account or you have any test customers, do not sync those, just leave them unsynced, right? Like that, you don't accidentally bring that data over. Now, once you've mapped your customers, okay, the first time, you're typically done and you're really never going to come in here again, because the reality is every time you create a customer, either manually or through a quote activation, you're now going to have a new field for QBO customer. So at the moment that you're creating the customer, you're going to go ahead and sync them. And I'll show you guys in a bit, but on the customer billing page, you have a billing details section where you can control, for example, the credit limit, the billing profile. You're going to have the ability to change it there. So this is a place that you're going to come to the first time, or maybe once a quarter, once a year, just kind of audit it, make sure everybody's synced up. Now, once you've got your customer mapping done, you're going to take care of your default mapping. Now, the default mapping is the bare minimum that you need for the integration to work. And what it is that we have a category, right, for all the main transactions that can happen, right? So every transaction in the system will always happen inside one of these categories. You're going to have subscriptions, which are the most common, then come taxes and usage, and you have manual charges and conferencing, okay? So again, every transaction will always be in one of those main categories. So on the products and services side for QuickBooks, what I did was I created one for each, okay? And they're each mapped to their own chart of accounts. So with just this setup right here, once I'm syncing my data over and I look at my P&L, I'm going to see that all the RingOS revenue that was booked on my P&L, I'm going to know exactly how much I have in subscriptions, taxes, usage, charges, conferencing, etc. Now, at the most bare minimum, this is what you need. Now, if you come back and say, okay, Albert, but you know what, we're a bit more advanced on bookkeeping, and really, I want to be able to identify how much revenue do I have in PBX services versus SIP trunking services versus IT services. Cool, we can support that. And in fact, while we were doing our R&D, that was one of the biggest limitations that the majority of our competitors had, which is they didn't allow you to get granular with your mapping, right? All subscriptions went in one place, all usage went in one place. So if you want to do that, that's where we have our advanced taxes and advanced subscriptions. So when it comes to taxes, all of them will be put into one category for you, right? So you can keep track of it. But if you say, you know what, I want to keep track of my federal taxes different from everything else, right? I want to know how much I owe each one individually. No problem. You create a product or service for the federal tax, and then you can override this individual tax. So all of these will go ahead and use the default one, but any federal tax will be put into the federal product or service. The same thing is true for subscriptions. And I got a couple examples here that I did, right? So on the subscription side, you'll notice that for my SIP trunking subscriptions, I put those specifically in a SIP trunking product or service, product. And then for my PBX subscriptions, I put them specifically in a PBX product, right? If I had IT subscriptions, stock subscriptions, and I wanted to keep track of those separately, I would create a different product and service inside of QuickBooks, and I would go ahead and map them. So once I map these, if the subscription has a dedicated one, it will use that. If it does not, then it'll fall back to the default mapping. Now, once you've got everything mapped up, using the application is super simple, right? You're going to come over here to Admin and Reports. Then you come over to your Receivables tab. You're going to have the QuickBooks Invoice Export option. You go ahead and you do a search for invoices. And you're going to have a list of all the invoices in front of you. Now, by default, we don't show you synced invoices. I'll show you those in a minute. But you're going to have a list of all the invoices. Now, here, we don't discriminate whether the invoice is paid or unpaid. That doesn't matter, because once the invoice is generated, you really can't go back in the past and change it. There's very, very few scenarios where you can go back in the past and change something. That would only be if the invoice was regenerated because it had the incorrect taxes, or if the invoice was regenerated because the usage was billed incorrectly, right? In those scenarios, there is a no limitation. We would have to manually resync the invoice afterwards. But for everything else, your invoice is pretty much good to go. Now, once you want to sync an invoice, let me find some of the test customers. I know I had synced this one right here and this one right here. Once I want to sync an invoice, all I need to do is go ahead and select the invoice itself. And actually, you know what? Let's pick some higher ones. Come right here. Grab this one and this one, 51 and 50. I hit the export button. I hit confirm. And in real time, it's going to run the process. It's going to create those invoices very quickly. And it's going to give you the status of what happened in the sync. So in this particular case, I see that 2 invoices were synced, 0 were skipped, and 0 had errors, right? Now, once an invoice has been processed, it is going to get a status indicator on the left-hand side. Synced means exactly that. It was successful. We pushed it over. There are 2 other notices or statuses you can have. One is called skipped. So if you ever see skipped, go ahead and click it, and we'll let you know why we skipped it. But 99% of the time, skipped means that there was a mapping missing at the time of the sync, okay? So for example, you went to go sync a customer, but the customer wasn't mapped. Or you want to go sync the customer and one of the defaults were not mapped at the moment, right? So if a mapping is missing, then we will skip it. We'll let you know what's missing so you can fix it and rerun it. The last item or the last status would be error. And error means that there was an actual error with the QuickBooks API, right? So typically something failed on that side. It could be an error just because their API had a hiccup, but usually it's going to be an error because there was something that you mapped or synced, and then maybe you deleted it on the QuickBooks side, so it wasn't there when we wanted to go use it. Like you accidentally deleted the customer or you deleted the product and service that we were using, right? So whatever it is, we'll show you the error. We're going to give you the raw error from the API. You can use that to contact our support, or you can read it, address it yourself, and move forward from there. So with that, guys, the last piece to show you here is the actual invoices and products, right? Or the invoices that we created over on the QuickBooks side. So I'm going to come back into my staging QuickBooks. I'm going to come over to invoices. And if you remember, the invoices that we synced were 50 and 51. And here we have them. Here we have invoices 50 and 51 for these customers, right? And if I go ahead and I click view, I'm going to see a replica of what the invoice is. I'm going to see that this has certain subscriptions that were put in the PBX product and service. And then we have other subscriptions like recovery fees that were not put on there. This particular example doesn't have any taxes on it, but if not, then we would also see the tax line items here on the bottom. Let me see if my other example had some taxes on it. No, these didn't, guys. Sorry, I picked two bad customers for you. But if we had taxes, they would be in here. And if the taxes had the overrides, then the overrides would be in there as well. Now, one very common question when we were showing this off to some partners was, how does the taxation part of it work? Okay. So remember, QuickBooks has an invoicing system inside of it, and QuickBooks can calculate taxes. And everything that you see here related to taxes, okay, is very specific to QuickBooks. Okay, that means that it's using its internal engine. QuickBooks doesn't have the ability to do telecom taxation. We all know that, right? So the taxes are being brought over as line items on the invoice itself, okay? And then your chart of accounts is what controls where that goes, if it's above or below line or whatever it is in your P&L. And the last thing is these invoices, they're not intended, okay? They can be, and this is one of the business models we talked about, they're not intended to be a responsibility migration, meaning it's not intended to export the invoice to then send to the customer directly from QuickBooks. That's not what this is for, right? That's what we're going to call third-party collections. This is intended to sync the data into QuickBooks so that you have it for bookkeeping and reconciling purposes. The second model we're going to get into slowly as this evolves. And Jamie, I think that's it right there, right? So we cover the introduction of the marketplace, we cover the QuickBooks app, what's it intended for, how to set it up, how to do the mappings, how to set up QuickBooks, and really how to run the sync. Now, guys, version 1 is going to be released this Friday, and it's exactly what you're looking at here. And in version 1, we're syncing the invoice with all of its charges and any credits that it might have had, right? So if you gave a credit for a service, you refunded a call, you give a credit towards a subscription, whatever it is, those will be brought over. Those are all P&L affecting transactions, right? So they will make your P&L go up and down accordingly. Now, what's already in the works that we're bringing or that we're already working on? So one of the things that we identified earlier that our partners didn't have with other systems was the granular control. We were able to squeeze that into release. The second thing our partners have been saying that they've been looking for that they're not finding is automatic reconciliation. So that's already in the works as well. It's probably going to happen around the 2-month mark. So once we see partners are happy, they're liking it, then we're going to go ahead and turn on the automatic sync. And in that case, you no longer have to come in and hit the sync button, but automatically every time there's an invoice in the system, we'll push it out. And the third and final piece, again, something that we discovered other systems weren't doing, which we kind of thought was crazy, to be honest with you, is reconciling payments and refunds. And that's already in the works. We've shared the design with several of our partners that are big into bookkeeping, and they were really happy with it. They gave it their stamp of approval. So we will be syncing very soon. We'll also be syncing your payments. So you have a fully reconciled automated solution where your invoices are brought over, your payments are brought over, and then your deposits are reconciled against that. And we're also bringing over refunds. Refunds was really complicated. It took a lot of people to get that to work, including our CPA and our bookkeeper and our CFO. But essentially, we came up with what we think is a relatively elegant design so that should you implement or should you issue any check-based refunds or any credit card refunds, those will automatically be reconciled to QuickBooks for you. So that's what's coming in 1.1. And again, it's not like we're looking at it or it's on the roadmap. That's under development now, and you're probably going to see that within 30 to 60 days.
So, hey, Albert, do you want to tackle some questions? So I'm seeing a reoccurring question, and I figure you could talk about it now. And I know you've talked about it on other partner meetings with QuickBooks. Is why did we make the decision to not do the desktop version, the online version only?
Yeah. Let's address that one first. So as far as the decision what to make, right? The 80-20 rule, whether we love it or hate it, is a rule that we got to live by, right? So what does 80% of the population use and need? And that answer to that question is QuickBooks Online, right? We see that a lot of people are using QuickBooks Online, and really QuickBooks Online is the most modern version of QuickBooks, and it has the tools like the APIs, right, to be able to develop these functions. QuickBooks Desktop doesn't have the same tool set. QuickBooks Desktop works a little bit differently, and it doesn't have the APIs to be able to connect to it and push it over, right? So when we looked at forcing or spending our resources where we address the masses, it was QuickBooks Online that was the answer, right? With that said, if we have enough demands, right, then we can look at the possibility of trying to be more friendly with QuickBooks Desktop. But just so you guys know, it will never be as beautiful or as elegant as the integration with QuickBooks Online because it just lacks the technology, right? It doesn't have the APIs. It doesn't have the same workflows. So we can look at creating some level of CSV export that you can bring in, but we'd have to measure that and make sure that, like they say, the juice is worth the squeeze.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah, we had a couple questions about that specifically. So gang, I'm in your package. You guys know Gabriella always graciously sends out a package to everyone that not only joins, but people who weren't able to attend. So it'll include the presentation and the video of this, Tech Tuesday. In here, these are the links to the knowledge base articles that Albert referenced. And we will have RingLogix University courses coming soon. We wanted to get this out. And so we'll get those recorded and they'll be in the advanced section in RingLogix U. So just a heads up.
We have hit all of the questions. I kind of alluded to this before the call. And if you were on early, you might have heard this, but I'm kind of excited by this summer because of all the things that I'm expecting us to release. Dev and Albert and our engineering teams have been very, very busy over the last few months. We've got a number of things that you'll see released over, really probably all the way through August right now, based upon our current roadmap. So pay attention to invitations. Jamie will probably be doing training for some of this. They'll be on Tech Tuesday. We'll also have emails that get sent out. And lastly, if you log into RingOS, sometimes that little pop-up can be annoying, but sometimes it's got really valuable information. I'm hoping that we're going to have some really valuable information in the pop-up when you guys log in over the next few months. So pay attention.
Are we going to call it our feature series, Wayne? Our summer partner love?
Our summer partner of love. There you go. we need like a hippie drawing to promote it.
Gabriella, we'll need you to get on that. Little hippie Canva drawing. So
We'll do.
Will do. Well, thanks everyone. We're really excited about this. I know it's been long awaited, so it's here and then release Friday, Albert. So everyone will be, let us know, give us feedback. You guys all know you can email me and tell me how you feel and let us know. As far as the QuickBooks, the other services, Albert, maybe we'll send out a poll. Is that maybe something we would do to see if that's something for development or?
For the external billing?
No, for the desktop version.
Yeah, for the desktop version, anybody who's on the call, if you're interested in the desktop version, do me a favor, email Jamie directly, let her know that you're interested. We're probably going to set up a call. We want to understand, how do you use it? How will it work? It's important for us to be on the same page that because it doesn't have an API, it is a 100% manual process, right? So like with our integration, it's all tech driven. So we connect to the API, we read your chart of accounts, we read your products and services, we create the invoices, that's automatic. In the desktop, it won't be that way, right? So in the desktop, you're going to have to get the IDs for the chart of accounts, the IDs for the product and services, the IDs for your customer. You're going to have to manually map those inside of our system somehow so that we can produce the report that, again, you're going to get as a CSV and then you're going to import to desktop, right? So as long as you're comfortable with that, and you can really say, look, this makes sense versus moving to online and you want to do it. If we have enough of a demand, then we'd be happy to explore it.
Cool. And I put my email in the chat in case you don't know it, but it's my first name spelled funny, JAIME @ringlogix.com. But it's in the chat. So if you're interested in that, I didn't want to think you guys to think we forgot about that. So just give me a quick email, and we'll see what we can do.
Thank you, everybody, for being here with us today. We do appreciate it.
All right. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks.
Thanks.